Beyond 3D.
I had a radar hit, and it was swinging. It looked like 30 knots. There was something there. It looked like it didn't look like a bird. It looked like, no kidding, a rock to me. I kid you negative. I have no idea what it was, but basically just heads up, try to stay away from 17,000, keep your nugget on the swivel. I have no idea what it was. I'm going to use my radar to see if I can pick this project up again. I picked it up twice. The first time I picked it up, my radar broke lock, so I thought it was just some kind of bad lock or potential chaff. And I'm going to turn back towards the north just a little bit. Fuel pickup trail. Back, I'm going to start coming back towards the west. I think it was 004 for about 20. I've got it again. This is 17.7. 3 miles off my nose is 17.7. I'm flying that way now. I'm going to slow down. I'm not going to get below 300 knots, but back towards you. Dude, I can't tell. Some small, very small black object. I had it at 17.7. It just flew right over me.
Confirm the object appears stationary.
Well, I couldn't tell because it was just moving to the spot. I think it's about 30.
You're 80 knots.
Yeah, my radar showed between 30 and 60, so I have no idea what it's actually doing. But it went from 17 the first time I saw it to 17.7, so it's not falling. I don't think it was a bird.
Welcome back this weekend to another edition of Beyond 3D, Matt.
How are you, Clint? I'm doing well. How about yourself?
Good, thank you. What did you think of that?
Oh, it's interesting. As I was watching that, I said I've got to call my friend Antonin, who's just got his pilot's license for 747.
Oh, nice.
And former Navy, and I got to talk to him about stuff like that because it sounds fantastic when you listen to that.
Yeah. And I dare say there'd be hours and hours of that type of audio archived.
I would think so. And the thing about that to me is, quite frankly, it's military. So as far as I'm concerned, that's what's going on out there. They just don't talk about it, and that's fair enough.
I sent you a link to that this week. We should put that up on the Facebook page now.
Yep, will do.
Because there's lots of really good video footage that goes with that too.
The thing about it is there was some really good ones in there.
I know there was some really good ones in there.
I was like, wow. But the other thing about it is when you start watching a lot of this on the internet, YouTube or what have you, there's a lot of them where, and you would know this, Clint, because you're really good at this, CGI versus reality in a sense. And I've seen some on a vid site called Section 51, I believe, or something, Section 52, 51, 52, and really good CGI.
Yeah, but that's the thing. Mm-hmm. Like with CGI, like Independence Day just came out at the cinemas.
Yes, it did.
Okay, so what they do with a film like that, they have concept artists that sit down and they sketch and they come up with all different designs, and then they take it to the 3D renderers, and then they sort of follow it and add their little bits of tweaks and stuff.
Yeah.
In those videos, there's detail that doesn't need to be there, which to me calls it authentic.
Okay, yes.
Do you know what I mean? Like little flaps and stuff that don't need to be on the UAPs, like flaps and certain parts of, like the design of landing gear. Like I looked at some landing gear in one of those clips, and it was the one where it landed in the park.
Yes.
And the Japanese kids are running up to it and they're screaming and they're all excited and they're trying to film it from behind a bush.
Yes.
The landing gear on that UAP is not any kind of landing gear that you would expect to see design-wise. Like it just looked clunky and wrong, but I don't understand if it was real. No concept of how it works. So I don't know how the function follows the form.
Yes, okay. Yep.
With that kind of landing gear. So I'm looking at it and going, that is just really, really bizarre. If I was to CGI and make something like that, there's no way I would pick a design like that because it just looked too industrial.
Okay, yes.
But as along the lines of the fact that it looks so out of place that it was almost authentic.
I agree with you. I know what you're saying. I still have a hard time differentiating between the two. And so what I do is look in the comment sections on a lot of these things, and then as soon as you do that, it's gone. So I saw one the other day, which I will put a link up on Facebook as well, and it was very interesting, from Turkey,
Yes.
And it had 4 jet fighters.
Yes. Now, they were F-18s, I think, that were giving it an escort. And this thing looked like a black flying pine cone that had all of its shingles opened.
That's it. Yeah, I was looking at that going, that's interesting looking, because I can't put it this way. They can do some really good stuff with CGI if that's all that is. But it looked a little bit more than that to me.
It looked a little bit more than that, and it kept... obviously the person that was filming it was stationary as these were passing over.
Yeah.
It kept its size and proportion as it was moving off into the distance with the F-18s. And everything along the lines of light source that was reflected on... When I say reflected, I don't mean like a mirror. I mean reflected like the light bouncing off the matte surface of the ship. Matched exactly what was on the F-18s, and the light source and the speed in which it was traveling. It just looked amazingly real.
It did. It most certainly did. I was I was like, whoa, that's an interesting one. But again, I had mentioned this the other week. It reminded me of one of the ships seen in Babylon 5.
You and your Babylon 5.
Now, anybody that watches the Babylon 5 TV series from the 90s knows about the shadows.
I'll just leave the room for a minute.
Yeah, for a minute. They know about the shadows and the Vorlons, but a shadow, when I looked at that, I had to go, wow. Either, is this life imitating art or something like that?
I was just about to say that, life imitating art.
Because honestly, that pine cone of a ship looked exactly like the shadow vessels in Babylon 5.
Well, they do say that they like to drip feed what's really going on into popular culture, but they do it 10 years later, if you know what I mean. So... Who knows? That pinecone ship could have been around for the last 50 years.
It could be, but it was beautiful looking at it, and I just was like, wow, that really looked good. So they can make some good ones out there, but if it's real, it's real.
I think anybody that makes that stuff for fun and releases it as authentic is doing the world a disservice. If you want to create that kind of stuff, set up a YouTube channel and showcase your skills. Don't create that stuff and then put it out into the world and pass it off as genuine, because all you do is just add to the lie. All you're really doing is adding to the lie.
Yeah. And I think Damien Knott said it the other week. He said out of all of the sightings he's had, only maybe 1 or maybe 2 have been physical ships like you've seen. And all of a sudden you go out on YouTube and there are just dozens upon dozens upon dozens of these.
But then again, we might not even be in a hotspot for that kind of thing.
Possible. A distinct possibility. There was, back to these Air Force, not the fighter pilots and what they report and what they see. Quite frankly, what I understand as far as security clearances and stuff like that. Now, at least in the United States Air Force, when you sign up, you agree to protect and serve the people of the United States and protect the Constitution of the United States. They can declare, and they've done this in the past, they declare a lot of old news articles, different reports of sightings, UAP sightings and things like that. They declare them classified, and then as a military person flying a mission somewhere, you see one of these things and you're just basically not allowed to talk about it. A lot of that happens, but what can also happen is with scanners and things along those lines, people can pick up the radio traffic, especially around air bases. So a lot of the things that are happening, people can tap into that.
And record it.
And so a lot of this stuff goes out over the airwaves as well.
Would that not be illegal?
No.
Really?
No, because in the military, they have the capacity to have scrambled signals and channels, and therefore, if they don't want somebody to hear it, there is a way of scrambling the signals that are coming between ground control and the pilots in the sky. So, therefore, it's just like when they talk about NASA and what used to happen on the moon. They used to talk in code, allegedly, when they would see certain things flying around the moon that they weren't allowed to talk about. A similar situation. They can have a private channel where, almost like a virtual private network, where they can still talk to the pilots, do what they need to do, and follow along. So it was done on an open channel that a scanner could pick up or a shortwave radio could pick up. Therefore, if you pick it up, it's public domain in that regard. Now, it still does, what happens is, it still means that as far as Air Force personnel, Army personnel, military personnel are concerned, they still have an agreement, a contract that they must adhere to, and that contract states you are not allowed to talk about this, and this. Therefore, they just don't talk about it, or they'll talk around it.
Or you go into Leavenworth.
Yeah, that too. But a lot of those guys, look, most of the guys, and a lot of you guys out there know this already, a lot of these guys won't say anything because it affects their pensions.
Oh.
It affects their lives.
You don't bite the hand that feeds you.
No, you don't bite that hand, but the other thing is if you do bite that hand and it's something that's just really, really important, all of a sudden your dog dies and they're threatening your kids. So you have to be very careful. So I think a lot of these guys are very, very careful. And quite frankly, when they, 20, 30 years goes by, they can all of a sudden start talking about a little bit of the things that are going on.
It's interesting you say that, because I watched an interview this week with Linda Moulton Howe.
Oh, yes.
And she went through a whole series of Army papers in subsections and talking about what the protocol is for when they're engaging in the air. It was really, really cool. Beyond, 3, D.
What I know about Linda Moulton Howe is I've been listening to her for decades now. She did HBO and a lot of television series and things like that, and was known as being one of those investigative journalists. I won't call her a reporter. She's a journalist.
Emmy award winning.
Yeah, that is known for doing really thorough research. So really good to hear.
She, Linda Moulton Howe is a trustworthy source for this kind of information.
An informed and trustworthy source.
Very well informed. Informed was the word I was looking for.
That's about as good as you can get. And so, yeah, a lot of her, and I believe her going back over her history, she started doing the cattle mutilations out in the western areas of Colorado and things like that.
That's what she won that documentary for.
Yeah, and then moved on from there. And quite frankly, a lot of information that she comes out with is down the line. She's at least 7 to 10 years ahead sometimes. Comes out later that what was conjecture actually happens to be common practice, but you don't find out about it till 10, 15 years later.
And that's the thing. I mean, she interviewed Whitley Strieber a couple of weeks ago, and the reason that she interviewed him was because she had come across another series of more information along the lines of the abduction phenomena.
Yep.
And this new information that she's come across in talking to new people. She went on the air coast to coast.
Yes.
And she mentioned that a lot of remedial masseuses across America are starting to have experiences where they will get a client that comes into the room. They'll ask the client to turn off the mobile phone, so the client will turn off the mobile phone, and the client lays down, and the masseuses are doing what they do, working the muscles and that, and all of a sudden the mobile phone will let out a very bizarre buzzing beep noise when it's turned off. And then all of a sudden the masseuses en masse are freezing while they're in mid-massage, watching a spectral alien entity that's not physical rise up out of the person they're massaging and disappear. And the person has no idea that it ever happened, while the masseuse is watching it all but frozen with fright. Now, she went on coast to coast and mentioned that had happened to Whitley Strieber and was inundated. She got 115 emails within 2 hours from people all around America. These are remedial masseuses saying, we have had that same experience.
Oh, look.
Where do you...
Nothing's new under the sun. It doesn't surprise me.
It's just... And what she was saying, Whitley Strieber was saying, is that they suspect, and this is them saying that, this is not me, they suspect that it could possibly be some kind of other entity experiencing life as a human being.
Yeah.
And during the massage process, something happens with the mobile phone that triggers them to leave. It's just really crazy. It sounds absolutely nuts, but there's obviously some kind of science and logic behind it that is just way beyond our understanding.
Yeah, when you were saying that, something appeared in my head, but I won't go into that now for reasons. No, for reasons like I will not go into it now. It's not the place. There will be a time. It has a lot to do with the fact that you're talking about massaging, you're talking about chakras, you're talking about energy centers in the body, and those energy centers can affect certain things When that starts to happen, a lot of interesting things can happen.
Yes.
You talk about the fact that there could be people that are experiencing life as a human being, but they're alien entities.
Yes.
Well, a lot of that has to do with spiritual work that people do.
Yes.
And you can start to see all of these kinds of things.
Yes.
It might come out as a gray-looking thing, alien or a mantis-type being, but I personally don't worry
Matthew,
about
stop
that.
for a second. I didn't say mantis. Now, it's interesting you say that. I didn't even mention that. Do you know that that was part of what she spoke about?
No, I didn't know that.
Yes,
but
you
I
did.
Can well, put it this way. A lot of that stuff has happened.
Okay.
We'll leave it at that. Because a lot of other people have seen that as well.
Mm-hmm.
And under different circumstances. Because what I think and this happens a lot in Asia, in the Philippines especially, a lot of the meditation masters, they have learned how to manipulate energy on the etheric and the astral levels.
Mm-hmm.
And because of that, you can actually look at a human being and you can see spiritually that this time they're on this earth, but the last few lifetimes they have not been on this earth. They've been in another dimension, another plane, another type of system or planet. But their physical, their astral form of the entity on that planet remains and can be tapped into. They know how to do this. You can learn it. There's a skill that you can actually learn, a skill set that you can learn that will allow you to open up certain energy centers in sequence in the body, and it can reveal what's going on the astral emotional level. And when what these masseuses are doing is inadvertently, they're massaging certain areas, it activates certain energy centers, and being that sequence was activated, even though it was a mistake, in the right way, boom.
Yeah, well, that's what's happened.
It reveals a person's other natures.
And this woman in particular that emailed her, and Linda Moulton Howe spoke very openly, gave this woman's name and everything. This woman said she was frozen with fear and she could not move as she watched this, it's what people call traditionally a grey. Watch this grey levitate out of the person's chest up into the room and then just disappear. Like it was translucent.
Yeah, astral.
Yeah. Very cool.
Yeah. Doesn't need to have a physical form on the astral level like we'd have here, which is mundane, etheric, and
three-dimensional.
Three-dimensional, and the word I'm now looking for, more gross matter. You need that to be
Tactile.
to act. To act on this plane of existence, you have to have that physical, gross form that can move about here.
It is a gross form, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because I'm driving a beaten up. I'm driving a beaten up car right now, and that's my body.
Yeah, well, that's the same thing for everyone out there. Some people have the nice whiz-bang cars. Others of us just drive normal, everyday cars that get us from point A to point B and don't worry about it. But the fact of the matter is, from a bodily standpoint...
Well, hang on a sec. We were not talking about four wheels. We're talking about a human body as a car. Yeah.
So our physical forms in and of themselves, are... where, if you want to take your physical form and equate it to computer technology of today, you're still running a system from the late 1970s, early 1980s. We need to upgrade.
What operating system was around in the 80s?
Oh, good Lord. What did I used to have? DOS on my Microsoft. I bought my first computer back in 1983. Which was an old Microsoft DOS. It came with COBOL, Fortran, and BASIC. It came with a monochrome screen, dot matrix printer, had a 256K's worth of power, two 5.25-inch floppy drives. So we're talking older technology.
Wow.
But I paid $4,000 for it.
I remember the first time somebody showed me Windows 95.
Oh, yeah.
And I remember watching a file fly across from one folder into the other, and I remember sitting there looking at it going, oh my God, that's amazing.
Yeah, exactly. Not anymore. Not anymore. Especially with the clouds and all the goodies that we have today.
Beyond.
3.
D.
I want to get back to a point you had made before with this the entities coming out. They had to turn off their mobile phones. And then all of a sudden you hear these tones coming through.
Yes. Linda Moulton Howe said that the tones happened for about two to 3 seconds, but they weren't tones that the phone was designed to make.
Okay.
And the phone was off. The phones have all been off.
Right.
So, you go for a massage and the masseuse tells you to turn off your phone so you can relax and you're not disturbed and whatever. And then all of a sudden the phone started beeping this high-pitched beep and the masseuse froze. Could not move.
There is a movie coming out.
There always is.
With Samuel Jackson and I think John Cusack. And it's called The Cell.
Okay.
and I think I have seen the trailer for it, but what it talks about is people going around with their phones, and all of a sudden this tone is sent, and it totally fries the brain and turns them into like this zombie-type character. And everybody around the world has gone zombie-like, and then it's the usual John Carpenter, Night of the Living Dead kind of shoot 'em up, bang 'em up, kill all the demons kind of thing. But the phones, again, tonality, you turn your phone off, yet the camera is still on. You turn your phone off, yet it dials someone that you didn't want to dial. You turn your phone off, and a lot of things are starting to happen. I heard an interview with a person this morning, actually, and they were talking about the fact that they were in the military, and all of a sudden they had turned, or thought they had turned their phone off. They started hearing these tones, and signals were going through the phone, and he started to recognize the signals because he had a security clearance. And it was some technology that he had been working on but couldn't actually talk about on the radio only up to a certain point. And he said it really freaked him out because he recognized the fact that they're actually using this technology that's supposedly covert in the public domain. And he said if he knew that was going on, that a heck of a lot more is going on. So all of those, we all have our little tracking devices known as a smartphone in our possession these days.
Even when it's turned off.
That's the whole point. And according... What was it? Because I heard Alex Jones actually said this. He said, according to the Telecommunications Act of 1996, the phone needs to be accessed by certain government authorities even when the system is turned off. So you turn your phone off, they have the access to be able to turn it on.
Do you think that that's in case of a FEMA incident so that they could warn everybody? Or do you think that's more nefarious reasons?
I think they're doing it for protection of citizens, but I think within that you compartmentalize it, and there is always some section of government which will say, hey, wait a minute, we can also use it for this. So in the general terms, as far as the one level of truth, I believe it is for protection. It is, they have a good reason behind doing it. It's a safety issue. But
Snowdon.
Yeah. But they will also have groups that will use it for nefarious purposes, so to speak. So what can you do?
And then again, when the CIA wants an iPhone jailbreaked, they can't get into an iPhone.
Bull.
Yeah, I know. What's that all about?
Come on. That's trying to make it look good, because if everybody knew that they could get into their iPhones, they say, wait a minute, what about security? What about the protection? It would be really bad for Apple, which means it would be really bad for Google and any kind of Android device. And everyone would then know that, wait a minute, there really is no privacy. They can break into the daggone thing whenever they want. And what about the other fact that I've just recently heard, that now all of we lovely Australians, when we decide to go to America, they now will ask you about your social network status and ask you for your, Facebook details, including passwords, and you have a choice not to give it to them. But if you don't give it to them, they have a choice to say, well, yes, you wanted to stay here for 6 weeks, but we're only going to let you stay for 2.
Hang on a minute. How do they even know you've got a Facebook? I've got friends that do not have Facebook.
Well, then you can literally say to them, I do not have a Facebook account. I do not have access to anything like that. I don't believe in social media. But what they are now doing, the NSA came out and the FBI came out stating, no, it wasn't. I'm wrong. Homeland Security came out. And they are now stating that they want to be able to ask people traveling to the United States for their social network access.
But once they have it, they've got it forever.
Yes.
So why would you ever give it to them? Or
Well,
why would you ever turn around and say, yeah, okay? Because you can join. You can
do what anybody does. You set up a set up a dummy account and don't worry about it.
That's exactly what I was about to say. You know, there are people out there that have Facebook accounts that aren't in their name.
Yes, and so therefore you just give them a name. There's my Facebook account. Go at it, and you don't care.
No.
But this is what's going on now under the guise of security. But
because if I was a terrorist and I wanted to cause some kind of mayhem, I'd definitely be posting it on my Facebook page before I went ahead and did it, wouldn't I?
Oh, yes. So that way everybody would know what you were doing before you did it.
Exactly.
But quite frankly, they're quite adamant about doing things along those lines, but it still didn't stop the 3 guys out in Turkey from doing what they did at the airport, as far as I'm concerned.
That was despicable.
Well, that's what these guys are for. That's what they're all about. But that used to happen back in the 70s in England when you had the IRA running around doing things. A lot of it's not just that, put it this way, the Muslims are the flavor of the month when it comes to this kind of stuff, and that religion is basically bearing the brunt of it. But before that, in the 70s, it was the Catholics versus the Protestants.
But then again, how do we even know that it's Muslim-based? I mean, anybody could do something like this and just blame it on somebody else.
Okay. I think it's beyond just a religion. I think they're using a religion as a cover.
Oh, absolutely.
So, therefore, yeah. But then again, the same thing used to happen in the United States when the Christians used to get together and they used to say, wait a minute, we're against abortion. So what did they do? They went out and killed an abortion doctor.
Well, you're against people taking the life of a baby, so you'll go and take the life of a human,
So you kill the doctor that is doing this. So, come on.
I guess from that logic, it's kill the doctor so he cannot...
You're saving a lot of lives.
Saving a lot of lives.
Yeah, and you can take that to another level because the Supreme Court just ruled on this and basically said that they can't stop what's going on in abortion clinics. What they tried to do was to say that an abortion clinic had to meet a certain medical standard. Mm-hmm. And if it didn't meet that medical standard, the procedures couldn't be performed there. And that would basically take about 75 to 80% of the clinics around the country off the list, and they wouldn't be able to do it because they didn't meet the standards. The standards they put forth were very, very high, and basically they just wouldn't be able to meet them. They would have to close down and go through all the rigmarole. But the Supreme Court knocked that back, and so now they'll have to come up with another way to get around that. But in and of itself, personally, when it comes to abortion, not a fan. Don't believe in it. But I am not dumb enough, nor am I naive enough to say my views should affect what somebody else thinks.
No, exactly.
And therefore, if someone is for it and it's a woman's body and she wants to do what she wants to do, I cannot stop her, nor would I protest in front of an abortion clinic. It is not my place to do that. But there are some people who believe they have the right to do that. But the other thing you have to think about, all the different levels of truth, most of the abortions, at least in the United States, are done because of Planned Parenthood, which was set up because of Margaret Sanger, which was set up because of eugenics. And when you look at it from that point of view,
eugenics,
you got to start saying to yourself, what is really going on here? And the fact of the matter is the black population of the United States right now is about 45 million people. They have aborted more than 35 million fetuses. So the population would be double what it is if those kids had gotten a chance to live.
Hang on a second. African American?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a pretty high statistic, Matt.
It's a very high statistic, but this is the whole thing about Planned Parenthood, and this is and when you go back and look at Herr Sanger's readings and writings and things along those lines, you will find that she was as bigoted and racist as you could possibly get, and she wanted to wipe out quite a few people.
Look, at the end of the day, and this is it's only my opinion, but at the end of the day, when a baby is growing inside you, that baby is a part of you. Yeah. So it's your body. A woman has a right to do. To me, it's just personally, it's a woman's choice.
I agree. And I don't think government should get involved in it.
It's a personal choice.
Mm-hmm. No, but my whole feeling about it is the fact that I'm of the mind that if there was an incestuous relationship or if she was raped or anything like that, castrate the son of a bitch who did it, and there's no way in hell you could force that woman to carry that child to term. I think that would be the most reprehensible thing you could do, and you would psychologically scar that person for life.
Unless it was her choice to carry it through term.
If she decided to do that, I don't think you would get very many women who have been violated in that way to say, I'm going to have this kid anyway.
You know what? Who knows, Matt?
You don't know, but the fact of the matter is we get back to it's their choice. Anyway,
absolutely. Absolutely.
Enough of that.
Beyond.
3
D.
Anyways.
If you want to find the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. Do you know who said that?
Go ahead.
Nikola Tesla.
There you go.
Not
surprising.
Speaking of Tesla.
The car or the man?
Elon Musk.
Ah, yes, Mr. Musk.
Do you know...
he's coming out with something new, isn't he?
Well, I was actually going to tell you that he made a very, very bold statement recently.
Okay, what is it?
We are almost definitely living in a Matrix-style simulation, claims Elon Musk.
Yeah, okay. Like the movie.
Like the movie.
Well, wouldn't surprise me.
Elon Musk, the billionaire entrepreneur and founder of SpaceX, Tesla, and PayPal, has told an interviewer there's only 1 in billions chance that we're not living in a computer simulation.
Well, if you go back and study all of the esoteric texts and everything that is going on, they always have one thing in common, in my opinion: reincarnation. And people coming back as this, and this. And if you think about it, that is in and of itself a computer simulation type scenario. You do it this way, then you get to go play What If and turn around and do it a different way. So what is that? There's a system set up that allows that to happen. So, why not?
I'm waiting for really, really good virtual reality to come along.
Well, there was something else that Elon Musk had they talked about another technology or another business that he was setting up. And I said, oh, so they're going to do that now, and I can't remember it for the life of me, but it will come to me. But I was like, huh? Really?
Here we go. I found it. Elon Musk just announced a new artificial intelligence research company.
There you go.
So he's, it's called OpenAI. $1 billion has been committed to the project.
Yes.
And there's only a tiny...
Oh, a billion.
And that's only a tiny fraction on what he plans to spend over the next couple of years. So, yeah, a new OpenAI. So I'm wondering if open means open source.
I would hope so.
So would I.
As opposed to...
as opposed
Silicon Valley, as
DARPA.
Yeah, that too.
As opposed to those... Yeah, I'm not gonna discredit them. They can do it all by themselves.
Well, one thing about Elon Musk, at least he's out there trying to push the envelope, so to speak, to make sure that we are evolving in a sense, or at least evolving in his mind to the point of something positive. We're getting a lot more of we're seeing a lot more of them around here. At least I have. A lot of the Tesla cars are coming down here.
Yep.
They're putting in a lot of the power stations going all the way up the eastern coast of Australia. So that way you don't have to, they say people are suffering from, there's I forget the name of the syndrome, but it basically comes down to will my electric vehicle last long enough? Will the battery last long enough to get me where I need to get to?
To the next refill.
To the next refill station. So I keep on going.
Recharge station.
Yeah.
Yep.
So that's what people are suffering from. And once they feel that there is definitely enough stations for them to charge their stuff up, they won't have to worry about that anymore. And more people will start buying these cars. But I think what's going on is they're talking about the fact that the battery technology has to get better. And the other thing that's even, in my opinion, more important is right now, what are we using? Electricity, coal, all that malarkey. I don't have time for all of that. If it's going to be an electric car, it should be coming from a pure source where you don't have to worry about any of the pollutants and stuff like that. So hopefully they will get to the point where the batteries are good enough. We can all have a power wall in our house, and you can just drive up and plug your car in and off you go. But one of the halfway decent things that has come out of Silicon Valley, at least, because a lot of the other stuff is just ridiculous.
I usually drive around looking at my petrol tank, wondering if I'm going to make it to the next refill station.
Yeah, that too.
As most of us do.
Well, heck, if you're down on the peninsula and you're down in Portsea and you're on a tenth of a tank of gas, you're going to say, "Oh my God, can I make it to Blair Gowrie or can I make it to Tutkaruk to get to that station to put some petrol in there?" I can think there's no gas stations down there.
No, there's not.
But so that's the Muskie and what he's up to these days.
But burning a fossil fuel to create electricity for a form of transport sort of defeats the purpose of using petrol, which is coming from fossil fuel anyway.
You gotta...
God's sakes, people, just go hydrogen.
They've done that. They had the BMW hydrogen car up sitting in Federation Square forever and a day, and you can go look at it and see what the technology was about. But once again, the T. Boone Pickenses of the world, all the Mesa Petroleum people, and all the guys that own this and they're very, very heavily into fossil fuels don't necessarily want to have everyone all of a sudden be using water in order to basically fuel their vehicles and drive around in. So we'll see what happens with that. But there are other technologies that could be even better. So
look, if anybody's interested, there's plenty of YouTube clips of really, really clever people who have turned their cars into forms of transport that run on garbage, water, magnetic polarity motors that they've designed themselves, where the negative and the positive magnets spin and push against each other and create centrifugal force that has a never-ending momentum.
But you can actually, but you put a brake on it, it can stop it.
Yeah.
So that to me seems a little bit easier to deal with because it is a natural thing that is found in and around our atmosphere, and you can use that as opposed to digging something up and putting it in your tank. But, oh well. Life in 2016. Can't get around it. So yeah, it's interesting. So we've covered the Elon Musk and what he's doing lately. I know he's landed a couple of his rockets on the deck of the ships out in the ocean. You can actually see that a bit of that on YouTube as well. There's a lot of things going on out in space, and I know a lot of people talk about what's going on around Jupiter, but you will not find out anything about that for the next 2 to 3 years in general. What they're going to do is they're surveying the thing. They actually even have the Hubble telescope pointed up there looking at the aura of the daggone thing. So.
Hang on a minute. I thought that the Hubble telescope had journeyed beyond the edge of our universe.
Voyager did.
Okay.
The Voyager probe, the first one that went out, but now Hubble is still up there taking pictures from what I understand. And quite frankly, I saw something about Jupiter, and it's always struck me as odd, and this is the reason it is odd. We have that beautiful bright burning sun in the center of this so-called solar system. You then have another planet, which is actually more than just that. It's, what do they call it? There was a Tears for Fears song, Gas Giants.
Never heard of it.
Yeah, but that's what it is, sitting out there. Now, according to some people, when you leave this physical realm and go to the astral realm, the actual sun in this solar system is not the sun that we know, but it is actually Jupiter.
Hang on a minute. You just caved my head in.
No, it's...
on the astral plane...
On the astral plane.
The sun that we...
see in this physical plane...
is actually Jupiter.
Yeah, not the sun that we're seeing now. The sun that burns bright and is doing everything.
Okay, I'm with you now.
Yeah. Or you could even say it's almost like there are two. You have the sun and Jupiter is lit up. In other words, it's almost like Jupiter is the same as the sun, but it hasn't been ignited for some reason. So it's not burning like a sun would, or like a yellow giant star would.
It only has 9 hours of daylight.
Yeah, but it's, it is what it is. And it doesn't... But I think what's more important around that is, it is, in my opinion, on one level or one-dimensional level, a sun within itself. How many planets does that thing, how many moons does that sucker have? 50, 60?
Really?
Something like that. So it's got a whole bunch of them.
Europa.
Yeah.
Ganymede. Io.
Yeah.
Callisto.
Yeah.
What is it? Amathea?
Well, let's put it to you this way. If Jupiter were a sun, like our sun, it basically has enough little moons around it to call it, to have its own little solar. It's its own little solar system there.
Thebe? Mm-hmm. I'm just pulling these out of the ether. It sounds like I'm making them up.
No, but the fact of the matter is this. If you think about this, even when you talk about the names of these planets, what are they based on? They're based upon mythology, Earth mythology. Okay, so what does one of these gray aliens call Earth? What do they call Jupiter? What do they call Saturn? What do they call any other planet in the solar system?
Here's a question.
And how do we recognize it?
Here's a question.
Yes.
How did Earth get the alternative name Gaia? I don't know.
I don't either.
So when did I don't even remember when the name Gaia made its way into the vernacular. Mm-hmm. But that's the alternative name for Earth is Gaia.
No, who came up with Earth?
Well, you tell me.
This is the whole point. It's a body out there. We're just using our scientific terms for it, and I'm not a big fan of scientific terms. I just think,
I mean, in the universe, our moon could be named Gary, for all we know.
Like on SpongeBob?
Oh, the snail?
Yes.
Sorry, I had to stop and think about that. Gary the snail. No, well, our moon could...
Well, that's the whole point. I think that is the main point here, is the fact that we call these things Jupiter and Neptune, etc., but that's our definition. That's what we call them. That is not necessarily what their name... It's almost like when you go back to the old Indian texts and they say, never reveal your true name. So there's a name... Krishna has a name, but then he has a secret name that they never talk about.
Well, hang on a second.
Jesus has a name, then he has a secret name that they never talk about because that name has power.
Okay, I was about to say, if you have a secret name, what's the point of having it if you can't ever use it?
Well, you know what it is, and the people that need to know what it is, but you just don't reveal it to, you don't throw pearls before swine.
Gary. Beyond.
3.
D.
So that's what it really comes down to. You can play this game, and I love doing this with scientists. I said, why is it named this? And okay, so that's the Greek definition. So what about before the Greeks? What was it called then? And you go through all of this kind of stuff. And you just say, well, interesting. Very interesting indeed. So what's in a name?
Letters.
Besides letters. What's the meaning behind it? What's the context? And so that's what you have to look at. So from a scientific standpoint, there's a lot of stuff going on out in our solar system right now. But quite frankly, I'm more interested in the funky stuff that's flying by these planets that are the size of our Earth. And everybody's like, all the scientific community just lets it go by and doesn't say anything about it. I find that really, really interesting. But they love talking about the fact that you have this probe that's about to go into orbit around Jupiter. And it's going to do all of these great scientific experiments and tell us what? Really? Not a hell of a lot.
Well, the common man's not going to know.
Well, if it's going to go back and tell us how this universe was created and you don't believe in the Big Bang Theory, you're going to just basically say the information is a fallacy as far as you're concerned because it doesn't fit your paradigms. Come on.
For the record, I do not believe in the Big Bang Theory.
Neither do I.
No. It's very egocentric to think that we are the center of this universe.
Well, you have a person that goes to a universe that goes to 8 years of school, then 4 years of high school, then another 4 years, and then another 3 or 4 years to get a PhD. They've studied one little subject for a bit of time. They are now considered a doctor or an expert. And if somebody comes along that's been in the mountains in the Himalayas or something like that and can prove their scientific point to be invalid, it would be an affront. Mm-hmm. It would be an affront to the 20 plus years you've spent studying this daggone thing because somebody who you consider to be a Philistine basically can do something you can't do or explain something you can't explain. So therefore, the scientific method, in my opinion, is a load of bull because if it can't be repeated, you reject it out of hand. Therefore, if you look up in the sky and go, what is that? The scientist would go, well, if I can't see it again, it didn't really exist in the first place. Get real. So basically, it's a bunch of bull.
My favorite argument with anyone from the scientific community is the alternative world conversation.
Go ahead. I like that.
Well, it's like if there are alternative universes, and they've said that there is hundreds and thousands of them, allegedly, there must be an alternative universe where that's the opposite to ours. Where time runs backwards.
Oh, like that Benjamin Button movie kind of thing. Yeah,
but the thing is, if time runs backwards, how does life seed itself in a universe where time runs backwards?
You'd have to think about that.
Yeah, you do. It really it caves the head in.
Yeah, you'd have to really think about that.
Decay matter forming...
Weird.
Forming into... life.
Well, what can you do?
Experience.
That's all you can do. We will see what happens.
We're almost running out of time.
Yeah, I will save. I was going to talk about something, but I don't think this is the place for it. But we will talk about, because the anniversary had passed of the O.J. Simpson case, and something very important, a piece of information came out that needs to be discussed.
Okay. Why aren't we talking about it now?
I don't know.
Okay. I saw something about that during the week and I didn't click on it. It was something that after the verdict went through, OJ said something to someone in particular.
Rosie Greer.
What was it?
He said he didn't mean to do it.
Oh, didn't mean to. Okay. So therefore he's actually saying he's guilty.
No, not at all. It was hearsay.
Okay.
So someone heard him say it, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it could be admissible in a court.
Well, hang on a second. From his perspective, if he didn't mean to, and it was factual that he actually said that, therefore it would have been manslaughter.
Don't think he did it, personally. So there's one. Okay, I'll bring the point up now because it's a little point and yell at me.
I know how to milk you. I say you know how to milk you.
Okay, here's what it basically comes down to. They talk about all this with this case. They were talking about the time of death and who was where and what and why. The main thing I think is very important and pertinent information right now is the fact that O.J. Simpson and his defense team stated that when he left for the airport at 11 o'clock, his ex-wife was still alive, and that was based upon telephone records of a phone conversation she had at 11:30 in the evening. Now, here's the thing.
Why is he in jail?
Here's the thing. Here is the thing. He's not in jail because of that case. He was innocent from that case. He was in jail because of this case, and he went into Las Vegas with a gun and tried to hold somebody up to get some of his stuff back. But I digress. The fact of the matter is this.
Because that's what you do.
Here's what happened. When the defense team learned of this information, they went to GTE, the phone company, to get the phone records. What happened? GTE wouldn't...
I was going to say, can I guess?
Yeah, go ahead.
They either have lost them or wouldn't release them.
They wouldn't release them. And guess what they said after the fact? You can have them under the Freedom of Information Act after the year 2045. They're holding them up for at least 50 years.
OJ would be dead by then.
That's the whole point.
Okay.
But the fact of the matter is, if this woman actually had a conversation with her mother at 11:30 at night, it proves that he did not do it, because at that time he was on his way to the airport already and had the alibi of the driver of the limousine who was taking him there. Therefore, it did not happen at that time. They said it happened at 10:15, which gave him ample time to get from there back to his house, get in the car, and go.
Double back.
That would, yeah. So therefore, if this woman did in fact talk to her daughter at 11:30, and it would have had to happen after that, so he would be in the clear. Then it's just a matter of who did what to whom. Mm-hmm. Interesting. But that came out, and that they had sealed the phone records for 50 years. Which I find, and why would you bother to do that? Because the fact of the matter is, the FBI or the CIA, if they decide they're looking for you, like let's say you're like, I'm into finance, insider trading cases, the first thing they do is look at the phone records to see who made what phone call to whom at what time. Therefore, all of a sudden you go and say, well, we have information that could prove this person was alive at this time, and they all of a sudden say you can't look at it, seal it, and say, no, 50 years later you can look at them? Get real.
But you got to stop and ask yourself the question, what's in it for them? Why would they do that? Who's asked them not to?
Good question. Mm-hmm. Well, could be the same guys that are dealing with Brexit right now, for all I know. Watch what happens with that. That's going to be really interesting in the next 6 months.
Now, Matt, you just mentioned Brexit.
I did.
So do you think it's really unfortunate, or it's going to work in his favour, that Nigel Farage bears a striking resemblance a little bit to Donald Trump?
I don't think he looks anything like Donald Trump, quite frankly.
He's got the same kind of coloured hair and the same crazy hair and the same shaped face. And
I don't think he looks anything like him. The fact of the matter is, I heard Nigel Farage talk in the European Union, in that parliamentary hall there, after this thing had gone through.
Oh, sorry.
It was hilarious.
It wasn't Nigel Farage I was thinking of.
David Icke?
No.
Who?
Oh. Who was the guy after the Prime Minister stepped down, who was going to step up?
Oh,
that's the guy that looks
Boris?
like... Yes!
Boris Johnson.
Thank you. So, do you think it's unfortunate for Boris Johnson, who was going to step up to run the show for the British Parliament, that he looked a little bit like Trump?
No. Actually, I think it's playing into the hands of Trump.
Okay.
Right now.
Well, he was there at the time, too.
Well, he was opening his golf course in Scotland.
I didn't know he built one.
He had bought one out, and they refurbished it, renovated it, and it's now open for business again. No, quite frankly, I think Britain did the right thing insofar as they let democracy reign and they didn't necessarily fix the vote. It was very close. But the fact of the matter is this, it would be the equivalent of us here in Australia having to be governed by the laws of New Zealand and all the New Zealand legislature making the rules for us here. It's a similar situation to that as far as I'm concerned.
Okay, but think of poor Scotland.
Well, Scotland voted to stay in Britain as a part of Britain.
So that they could also be a part of the EU as well.
Yeah.
And leverage off that.
But I think if you look into the Scottish party that's in charge right now, you will find that they have a nefarious agenda. It's not as clean and milquetoast as they would make it out to be. Scotland can come back and have another referendum if they so desire, and go, and they've already talked about the fact that they can go and put a proposal in front of the EU to become a member if they become independent from the British Isles. The same thing can happen to Northern Ireland, or Northern Ireland, if they were smart, in my opinion, would all of a sudden go to the Irish Republic and say, well, maybe we should merge into one country again, and then we can see what we can do from that aspect of things. So as far as the European Union is concerned, it is, in my opinion, the European Union is a snouts in the trough organization that is a bit too full of themselves, and they are making rules and regulations for other countries, and they do not have to worry about having to be voted in or voted out by these other countries. They are just appointed.
Oh, no.
And that's the thing that's the bad bit about it. It's an appointed political organization.
No.
And so...
I've just remembered something really bad.
Did you?
I forgot to vote today.
Oh, that's right. We're having an election here as well. Well, I didn't.
That's both of us. That's really bad.
No, I did. We voted today.
Oh, I didn't.
We're very conscientious that way.
I forgot.
Well,
I've never forgotten to vote.
Well, let me ask you this then. You can tell the people here. Well, it's only going to cost you $20. That's
vote.
how much it is if you don't vote.
Okay.
You have to pay a $20 fee for not voting. But who would you have voted for? Who would you have voted for?
Oh, don't do that.
Why not?
I'll tell you who I'd vote for. Sally Baillieu.
Yeah, because she's at the station here. Vote 1 for Dunkley. So
Yes.
Sally's out there, so you can vote for her.
Yeah, for the arts party.
For the arts party, absolutely. That's the way to go.
Bugger. Sorry, Sal. I think that's all we've got time for this week, Matt. I've just
well,
crushed and burned realizing I haven't voted today.
Oh, wait a minute. Yeah, no, it's too late. Sorry. Can't do anything about it now.
Anyway.
Guys, you have a great week coming up. Watch out politically what's going on, especially over in Europe, because it will ultimately have an effect down here. But I have a few good guests coming up in the next few weeks, so you stay tuned out there. It's been a pleasure spending some time with you, and we will see you next week for another edition of Beyond 3D. So good night for now, Clint.
Good night, Matt, and thank you. It was a pleasure.
Same here. Take care, folks.
Bye-bye. Just because you haven't experienced it doesn't mean it doesn't exist.